Are we doing it? Are we doing it? It might be doing it. We might be doing the thing. We're doing the things. I think we're doing the things. Cool. Cool. Okay. Well, let me go ahead and plug in this way. So that way I hear the music in real time and I'm not listening to myself just like behind. And it'll be great. And my phone's freaking out. Everything's freaking out. Everything's freaking out. Okay. Okay, why is everything freaking out? This needs to be closed. So that way I hear the music. I said volume down. Ma'am. Quality. Oh my god. Okay. It is lagging. What's up? Okay, we are going to try. Oh, did it start the stream over again? There are lots of lagging right now, going on right now, so that's cool. How to fix that? I'm not sure. You know? I guess you're it just keeps stopping to buffer. Hopefully, this is not gonna be too rough a stream. Hopefully we can get everything up and running. But, there's an error message I want to tend to really quickly. Cool. Good to know. It is good to know. We're gonna try it anyway. We're gonna try and keep the stream going anyway. Salutations, friends. My name is Brianna Bond, otherwise known as No Ordinary Scholar, and welcome to this stream. We're talking today about the book Flyte by Angie Sage. It is the second book in the Septimus Heap series. I read the first book, I think that was first book I streamed beginning of the year, probably the first Wednesday of this year. And I absolutely loved book one. If you weren't here for that brief summary of it, you have a family that has 6 boys. Day that their son is born, so a matron takes him away saying he died, and while dad is like walking home from trying to bring medicine because he thought he was out at that time trying to grab medicine to see if he can help the situation, help save the child, he finds a baby girl, like newborn baby, in the snow, and then goes to take her home. And so they essentially have this daughter in place of the son that was born that same day. 10 years later, find out girl's a princess, and over a course of like a bunch of things, someone's trying to murder the princess, and after having killed her mother the night she was born, they chase her down. We find out she's a princess. We take down the bad guy, and we also find out that this little army soldier boy that we find along the way is that son that they thought had passed, Septimus Heap. And this book, so in this book, main storyline, the oldest brother is super salty because Septimus got given the chance to be the apprentice for the extraordinary wizard. And Simon's been studying like his whole life. He always wanted that position, and he felt like that was taken from him. God, I'm not able to maintain a straight in my mind. It is great. He felt like that opportunity was stolen from him by the now reappearing brother. And so he decides he wants that the night that he was given the apprenticeship, that the night that Septimus was given the apprenticeship, he goes out into the marshes and collects the living skeleton of the Dark Wizard, and he decides to become the Dark Wizard's apprentice. Well, at the beginning of this book, Simon is the oldest brother's name. Simon comes to the castle, like, all black clothes, black horse, reeks of dark magic. And he's like, Mom, I want to take my little sister for a ride on my horse. And Mom is just so flustered, and she doesn't know how to handle the situation. She lets him go. And he kidnaps the princess, Jenna, little girl Jenna. He kidnaps her, takes her to the Badlands, where she sees the skull of that dark sorcerer, and she does eventually just escape on her own. She escapes, runs into Septimus and their older brother Nico at the port, because Septimus grabbed Nico to try and help find her. Ran into them there, went out to the marshes again to see their aunt and this dragon boat that they discovered in the last book. Simon follows them. They take the dragon boat back to the palace. Simon attempts to kill the dragon boat, and Simon attempts to kill the dragon boat, and then he is defeated by... He gets away, but his plot at that moment is defeated. All the while, there is a secondary plot of Marcia, the extraordinary wizard, has a shadow, which is like a dark shadow. She has dark shadow. And the shadow is its own being. It's growing stronger. It's messing with her. After Septimus's pet dragon, he now has a pet dragon. After Septimus's pet dragon... What? Stop making noises. After Septimus's pet dragon breaks the shadow safe, they realize that there's a full skeleton minus the skull inside of the pieces of this shadow safe. And it is the Dark Sorcerer's body. Once Marcia brings in the last piece, which had the skull in it, the skeleton reforms itself, comes out to try and take her. But that plan doesn't end up working. Yeah, that's really the story. I liked it. I will say I liked it. It definitely was not as good as book number 1. Book number 1, I could barely put down because every ounce of that book had so much tension in it. Even at the point where we are fairly, like, the kids are safe at their aunt's place in the middle of these marshes that are so hard to try and navigate. They're safe. We know they're safe. But we do also know that the people on the outside of those marshes will not stop at anything until they've killed all of these people. And so even though the tense situation is not directly upon them in those times, it still felt incredible. There was so much tension in every ounce of that first book. In this book, it felt... It wasn't as captivating. frankly, it is just, it feels like one of those, just, this happens and then they get out of it, and then this happens and then they get out of it, and then this happens and then they get out of it. And I personally, especially knowing the skills that Septimus has, and knowing that he is further skilled by being the seventh son of a seventh son, I don't have as much faith in Simon versus Septimus, so I kind of think at any point it was just a matter of time before Septimus figured out how to stop Simon. But it was still good. Like, there were some story beats that I could see the thought and the planning behind it. Like, for instance, there's a whole thing about how Septimus, when he was in the army, he had one friend, but that friend got knocked overboard one night, and he's presumed dead. But they're going out to, when Septimus and Nico were gonna go try and find a way to track down Jenna, Nico was like, hey, let's go visit our three brothers that have decided to live in the woods. They've met this new guy they call him Wolf Boy, and he's the best tracker I've ever seen in my life. And that turns out to be that young army friend. So I could see how that was set up, but it didn't feel like this book had much follow through with his story. So it felt like something we guys picked up and then just kind of set to the side, as opposed to putting it away. And again, the writing is really good. Like, for instance, at the beginning, you have Simon Heap. He feels bad. He feels bad. He's dripping in dark magic. He's black clothes. And the last time he talked to anyone in his family was to say how much he hated Septimus because he didn't believe that he was really his brother, and how he stole everything from him. He hated Jenna because she's not actually family. She was adopted, so she's not actually their sibling. And I'm sitting here like, why the hell are you letting this man touch your child? I know he is also your child, but he does not get to just show up out of nowhere and grab another one of your kids and dip for a bit. They need supervision. But Sarah Heap has been written in this like typically non-confrontational way, that I believe that when he says, he asks her, what, do you not trust me? I totally believe that she would get so flustered and not know how to react in that situation, and therefore let them leave. And then once they're gone, she would consistently try and convince herself nothing bad is going to happen. These are your kids. Everything's okay. I believe that. She's written so well in that way that I believe that. And then you have this story with the Shadow, in which the Shadow is making Marcia more irritable. She doesn't listen to people as much. You see that. And so when Septimus comes and is like, hey, Simon kidnapped Jenna, and she's like, it's your brother, calm down, back off. And you can see how having that shadow has actually affected her, and that is the reason why she doesn't react to the fact that Simon took her. But you do see Dad, who right away is like, oh my god, what's going on? Where's my... was he actually? Maybe not. I don't remember exactly how Dad reacted. But, like, the way those two reacted was so accurate to how their characters are depicted, that even though I'm here like, why, I don't understand how you could let your child go off in that situation, I'm presented with two characters that, yeah, I for sure know that that's what they would do given the circumstances they're in. that's exactly what they would do. And I'm just kind of like, no, I can sense the plot is going wrong. But it makes sense that there's nothing else for them to do. Anything else about this book? Yeah, I was definitely not as enthralled with this book as I was the first book. If we're being honest, in my memory, I only really remember, I think I read all the first 6 books, and then book 7 came out so long after I'd read them that I wanted to reread them. But I frankly only really remember book 1. So I don't know if this is something we'll come into with the rest of the series, but it did feel like in this one, as opposed to what we had in the first one, like in the first one we had the overarching issue of this dark sorcerer is sending people and is insisting on the death of the princess, and that's something that's we're gonna have to deal with the whole story, and you interact with aspects of that conflict throughout the whole story. This one, I feel like I would say the overarching idea would be, the overarching conflict would be that shadow safe thing. I just feel like we don't interact with that as much, and I wouldn't say it's I wouldn't say it is that Simon Heap and him attacking them is the overarching thing, because I don't feel like he gets any more threatening. I don't feel like there's any difference in the level of what he is doing to them. So, for instance, in the book, first you start out with a general assassin, then you go on to the hunter, and the hunter is the most trained on being able to follow a track, find it, and be able to kill someone. So you have that, and then after he isn't successful, you have them send over someone that they had already begun to trust. It was a message rat they had begun to trust. They send that rat to find their location and trap Marcia. And so now they're without their most powerful wizard. And then after Marcia's trapped, then the Dark Sorcerer himself goes into attack. And so you can see how it's progressively becomes more and more intense, more and more dangerous when following things from that arc. But you also do have just general marsh creatures attacking as well. But on the other side, this book, I feel like everything was relatively the same level, if not, frankly, kidnapping Jenna straight out was not the most difficult thing, because it started out with kidnapping her, and then he followed them and threw thunder flashes, which are lightning bolts at them, and then he participated in the one kind thing, which didn't succeed. After that, he tried to push them off of their dragon, which also didn't succeed. So he just doesn't feel intimidating. He doesn't feel threatening in this book. And so you didn't see that escalation of danger. Everything felt pretty mild the whole way through. Another thing that I thought was really well written was at the end when we're dealing with the shadow safe. So what happens is shadow safe breaks, Skull forms itself back together. Once it touches, it is specifically the spell of a placement, a personal placement, and the skeleton that is placed will not stop until it kills someone, or it kills the person that is intended to kill, or it is identified. And so the skeleton of the Dark Sorcerer goes and is trying to touch Marcia, and that's all it needs to kill her. And she identifies it, but the identify does not seem to be working because her shadow is actually one of the Dark Sorcerer's old apprentices that he had banished to the Shadow World. And so because she's outnumbered, she loses the ability to, she's not able to do the spell correctly. And you see Septimus, who is there. Everyone's looking at him. They're like, oh my god, everything's going wrong. Everyone's terrified. And you see him go into this kind of haze, this daze, and starts walking into this bubble of magic that is produced. And there's the one part of me that is like, theoretically, this would feel like such kind of like a cop-out of how to deal with this situation, is you essentially just have him walk into the magic and then transfix the shadow, which you do see him like working on and using that kind of magic earlier in the book. But the character has always been written to be so attracted to just the feeling of magic and the way that he like just looks at this and is like, I just want to feel, and he's almost hypnotized. I just want to feel this most powerful magic. And he walks into it and then instinctually transfixes the shadow. And again, it doesn't feel cheap. It feels good for the story because that's how Septimus is written. He's written as someone that is just attracted to magic like a magnet because he is the seventh son of the seventh son. And so the way he feels magic is different, and it's so strong that it's believable that he could not help himself but to actually just go into this magical bubble to like help save the day. But for the most part, that's all I gotta say about this book. Yeah, there were quite a few like really well written parts to the story. It didn't feel as dynamic and as captivating as the last book is. Annoyed that the dragon boat is dying, because again, part of me is like, it's not gonna die because we just met the dragon boat, but the rest of me is like, oh my god, we just met the dragon boat, why would you kill it? So we'll see where that goes. I will not be reading book 3 next. In fact, I know I gave on my main channel, I did a stream earlier just kind of going over like how progress report type of thing. I know I said the next book I was gonna read was gonna be Back Before Dark. We're pushing that back. I was looking through some stuff at not at the library, but on like library app Libby, and I was able to check out this book called Dear Martin. And because for the most part I've gotten really into the habit of just browsing through the library just to see what's interesting, see what's on. And I saw that book, read the description, I've just been thinking about it all week, so now I'm going to end up just reading it because it's available, I can borrow it, and I can get it on my Kindle. So we're gonna read that, and then maybe we'll do Back Before Dark. It's either that or this book Slay, if the audiobook for it is available on Libby. That'll be the next book that I read. But for right now, we're gonna stick with Dear Martin. And I'll just keep you updated. That's all I have for this book. Until next time, valedictions, friends.